You'll beg to come back. They sneered over dinner as the waiter poured the $300 Cabernet. I hit send. The fraud alert exploded in their bank's inbox. I used to be their walking ATM. Tonight, I was the one locking the vault. Who was going to pay for this final stake? My name is Reagan Taylor. I am 31 years old, and I was sitting at the head of the table because my mother commanded it. It was not a place of honor. It was the seat for the defendant. Rowan's Prime is the kind of restaurant in Chicago's River North that weaponizes quiet. It's a fortress of dark mahogany, buttery leather, and hushed ambition, where the air hangs thick with the scent of dry-aged beef, seared butter, and the faint, metallic tang of old money. Golden light, meticulously engineered to make everyone look richer, dripped from oversized brass fixtures. It pooled on the surface of the wine glasses, reflecting the deep red of a $300 bottle of Cabernet. My father, Gregory, had ordered it. He'd used a casual, dismissive wave, the gesture of a man who hasn't paid his own mortgage in 6 years. I kept my hands laced in my lap, my spine rigid. Opposite me sat my mother, Lorraine, a queen holding court. She was 59, and her pearls, which I knew were real because I had paid for the appraisal, glowed softly against the artificially tanned skin of her throat. Lorraine had cultivated the look of effortless, breezy country club grace, but her eyes were sharp, metallic. They were the eyes of an auditor, and they were fixed on me. To her right sat my father, Gregory Whitaker, at 62, looked magnificent. He wore a dark navy suit that I knew, because I had received the text alert from American Express, had been purchased 2 weeks ago. His salt and pepper hair was perfectly coiffed. He possessed the profound, unshakable confidence of a chief executive officer, a role he hadn't officially held since the financial crisis of 2008. He consulted now, he always claimed. I was the one funding the consultation, the center of attention. The axis upon which this entire expensive evening spun was my younger sister, Sloane. At 26, Sloane was a masterpiece of curated imperfection, a social media queen whose entire personality seemed sponsored. She was flashing her new engagement ring, a diamond large enough to have its own gravitational pull, letting it catch the engineered golden light. And the Santorini Vista estate, Sloane was saying, her voice pitched just loud enough for the neighboring tables to overhear, is simply the only venue that understands our vision. It's iconic. Her fiancé, Preston Vale, nodded seriously beside her. Preston was born rich, a handsome man whose opinions were all borrowed from more interesting people. He looked like a catalog model waiting for instructions, his jaw set in what he probably thought was a look of masculine decisiveness. On the fringes, huddled together as if for warmth, were my brother and his wife, Theo, my older brother by 3 years, taught high school English. He wore his favorite tweed jacket, the one with the suede elbow patches, a quiet act of defiance in this temple of consumerism. His wife, Nadia, a nurse at Northwestern Memorial, looked exhausted. Her scrubs were probably folded in her bag under the table. She traced the rim of her water glass, her gaze fixed on the breadbasket. They were the only 2 people at this table who hadn't asked me for money in the last quarter. They kept exchanging short, wary glances, bracing for the impact they knew was coming. The waiter, silent as a ghost, refilled my father's wine. Gregory swirled the glass, holding it up to the light. "The legs on this, Reagan," he announced, "are superb. You have to appreciate quality." "That's what I taught you. Never skimp on quality." I nodded, the movement stiff. "I appreciate quality, Dad. I worked at Mariner Ridge Investments. I was a senior investment analyst. My entire career was built on distinguishing quality assets from toxic liabilities. The portfolio sitting at this table was deeply, catastrophically unbalanced." "The estate," Lorraine cut in, her voice smooth as the imported butter melting on the complimentary brioche, "is divine. Sloane, absolutely. But these things require commitment. They don't just hold dates forever." She turned her calculating gaze from Sloane to me. The spotlight swung, blinding and hot, This was the moment. The appetizers, the half-dozen oysters I hadn't touched. The beef tartare Preston had photographed for 10 minutes were cleared. The main courses, massive plates of protein and ambition, were imminent. The trap was set. "The venue is holding the date until Friday," Lorraine continued, placing her linen napkin delicately in her lap. "After that, they release it. It's their high season." Sloane immediately picked up the cue. Her face, moments before ecstatic, crumpled into a mask of curated desperation. "It's just so stressful. Reagan, Preston and I will be devastated. We'll have to start all over. It's the only place." Here it came, the bill, disguised as a family request, slid across the polished wood. "It's only the deposit," Lorraine said. She said it like she was asking for bus fare. "Just $20,000. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the respectful, moneyed quiet of Rowan's prime. It was the sharp, crystalline intake of breath before a scream. It was the silence of a failed transaction. $20,000. Theo looked down at his lap, studying his own frayed cuff. Nadia closed her eyes for just a second, a flicker of profound weariness. Preston, the rich fiancé, suddenly found the pattern of his bread plate fascinating. Gregory sipped his $300 wine, expectant. My heart was hammering against my ribs. A frantic bird in a cage too small. The scent of the steak sauce from the next table was suddenly, viscerally nauseating. I looked at my mother's placid face, the pearls, the unwavering entitlement. I looked at Sloane, her eyes wide, glistening with tears that were 90% performance and 10% genuine panic. I felt the phantom vibration of a phone call from 7 years ago. I was 24, 6 months into my first analyst program at Mariner Ridge, drowning in student loan debt and the terror of incompetence. The phone had rung at 2 a.m. My mother, hysterical, calling from an emergency room. "It's my heart, Reagan, the stress, the bills," a terrible, racking sob. The doctor said, "Reagan, if you don't pay this, I'll die. I swear to God, I will die right here." I paid. I drained my savings account, the one I had built with internship money. I wired the $5,000. The next week, I saw photos on social media. My mother and Gregory at a spa retreat in Arizona. The heart condition was stress-induced, she'd explained, and the doctor had ordered her to relax. The emergencies had never stopped. The crises just got more expensive. They evolved from overdue hospital bills to delinquent property taxes, from bad investments to, now, a destination wedding. I looked back at the table in the golden light. The hammering in my chest stopped. It was replaced by something cold, solid, and heavy. "I can't," I said. The words were quiet, but they shattered the air. The ambient clinking of silverware at the next table seemed to stop. Sloane's face collapsed. "What do you mean you can't, Reagan? This isn't funny." I said, my voice gaining strength. "I cannot pay $20,000 for your wedding deposit. Sloane." Lorraine's smile tightened, the skin around her eyes crinkling. "Reagan, don't be dramatic. This is for your sister. We're a family." "I can't," I repeated. Gregory slammed his wineglass down. The dark red liquid sloshed violently onto the white tablecloth. A sudden stain of violence. "Now you listen here, young lady," he started, his CEO voice booming, laced with Cabernet. But I cut him off. "No, I won't." My father stared at me, his mouth half open, stunned. Then he let out a sharp, barking laugh. It was a sound of genuine, cruel amusement, and it ripped through the restaurant's quiet. He turned to the table, gesturing to me as if I were a faulty piece of equipment. "Well, it finally happened," Gregory announced, loud enough for the surrounding tables to turn. I saw their faces, a blur of curiosity and mild disapproval. "The ATM is broken." Shame, hot and acidic, flooded my cheeks. It was a familiar poison. I had been swallowing it for years. But this time, something else was underneath it. Not resignation, not defeat. It was cold, hard bedrock. I gripped my water glass. The ice cubes clinked. A tiny, cold applause. This was it. Tonight. It ends. The waiter, a young man with terrified eyes, approached cautiously, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Is everything all right? Miss, I didn't look at my family. I looked at him. I reached into my purse. I didn't pull out the checkbook for the joint emergency fund that only I contributed to. I pulled out my own wallet. I extracted my own personal, corporate black credit card. I placed it on the table. I'm paying for myself, I said, my voice shaking only slightly. My meal, my glass of wine, nothing else. I will need a separate check. Gregory's face went a dangerous shade of purple. Sloane looked like she had been physically struck, her mouth open in a perfect O of disbelief. Lorraine, however, just watched me. Her eyes were chips of ice. She composed herself instantly, leaning forward as if sharing a delicious secret. A slight, venomous smile played on her lips. Fine, she whispered, the sound cutting deeper than my father's shout. Have your pathetic little tantrum, spoil your sister's night, but you'll beg to come back. Reagan, you always do. I pushed my chair back. The legs scraped loudly on the polished floor, a sound of absolute finality. I stood up, and that's when I saw it. Through the heavy plate glass window of Rowan's Prime, past the annoyed diners and the concerned waiters, a vehicle pulled up to the curb. It wasn't a taxi or an Uber. It was a black, gleaming Suburban, the kind that costs more than my annual bonus, polished to a mirror finish. A man in a dark suit and earpiece stepped out. Ignoring the valets, he held up a small, discreet, illuminated sign. R. Taylor Price Dallow, LLP. Lorraine's smirk faltered. She hadn't seen it yet. She was still looking at me. The broken ATM, the ungrateful daughter. I smiled. It was a real smile, and it felt strange and new on my face. You're wrong, Mother, I said, my voice suddenly clear and calm in the ringing silence. I'm not begging to come back. I'm here to collect. I turned and walked away from the table. I left the cooling steaks, the $300 wine bleeding into the tablecloth, and the $20,000 demand hanging in the air. I walked past the staring faces, toward the heavy glass doors, toward the waiting car, and toward the law firm that was about to dismantle my family. I stood, my napkin dropping from my lap. The entire table was frozen, their faces a grotesque tableau of indignation and shock. My father's mouth was still open. A broken ATM, I said, my voice cutting through the expensive quiet. Needs to be powered down. I kept my phone in my hand. I had been preparing for this. While they were discussing the wine, I had opened my banking app. I had the scheduled transfer page open, the one for the $4,200 that paid the mortgage on their West Haven Lane house, due to post at midnight. My thumb hovered over the cancel button. I pressed it, hard. The screen refreshed. Transfer canceled. I took a screenshot. The flash was obscenely bright in the dim restaurant. It illuminated Lorraine's face, her eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and pure rage. I airdropped the screenshot to my personal laptop, my work email, and my new private cloud account. Then I locked my phone and slid it into my purse. I turned my back on them. I did not run. I walked. I was halfway to the door, past the bar where men in expensive shirts were laughing about mergers, when the first digital stone was thrown. My phone vibrated in my purse. Then again, and again, a rapid-fire barrage, a hailstorm of notifications against the leather. I pushed through the heavy glass door. The night air hit me like a slap. It was cool, smelling of the Chicago River and exhaust. A welcome, clarifying shock after the suffocating, buttery air of the restaurant. The sounds of the city rushed in a distant siren, the rumble of an L train crossing the bridge, the impatient honk of a taxi. The driver of the black Suburban was holding the rear door open for me. He was tall, impassive, his suit perfectly tailored. He nodded once. Ms. Taylor, lawyer Cassandra Price is waiting for you on the line. I slid onto the cool, black leather. The door closed with a heavy, satisfying thunk, sealing off the sounds of the street And the life I had just detonated, the interior was dark, quiet, and smelled of new carpet and faint, antiseptic lemon. My phone was vibrating so hard in my purse it sounded like an angry insect. I took it out. The lock screen was a wall of poison. Sloan, you ruined my life. I hate you. I hate you. Dad. You ungrateful little bitch. You will answer me. Lorraine. My heart. Reagan. My heart is fluttering. You know I have a weak heart. Dad. Get back here. Now. Sloan. What am I supposed to tell Preston? You just ruined my entire wedding. Lorraine. You are killing your mother. I silenced the phone. I watched the screen go dark. And with it, a part of my brain that had been screaming for 7 years finally went quiet. Ms. Taylor. The driver's voice was polite from the other side of the privacy partition. I'm ready, I said. The car pulled smoothly into traffic. On the glowing tablet anchored to the seat in front of me, a video call was already waiting. I tapped accept. The face that appeared was sharp, intelligent, and utterly calm. Cassandra Price looked to be in her late 40s, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. She was not in an office. She was in what looked like a war room. Whiteboards covered in diagrams were visible behind her. Reagan, she said. Her voice was a crisp contralto, no pleasantries. Good. You're out. Did they see the car? I think so, I said. My own voice sounded thin. Perfect. Theatrics matter. She gestured to the seat beside me. There is a black envelope for you. Open it. I saw it then. A heavy manila envelope, dyed black, with the embossed logo of Price Dallow LLP. It was sealed. I tore it open. Inside were 2 documents. The first was a retainer agreement, which I had already reviewed and negotiated the week before. The second was titled, Emergency Authorization and Limited Power of Attorney for Victims of Financial Fraud. You have 2 tasks right now. Reagan, Cassandra said from the screen, your driver is taking you to a secure data location, not our main office. While he drives, you will review the file I sent to your new email. I pulled out my laptop. I connected to the car's secure Wi-Fi. I opened the encrypted email. There was one attachment. Whitaker Ledger. I opened it. It was my life, quantified in red ink. 5 years of financial bleeding, meticulously compiled by Cassandra's forensic accounting team from the bank statements I had smuggled to them. Every wire transfer, every Zelle payment labeled groceries that was actually for Lorraine's Neiman Marcus card, every car repair that matched a greens fee at Gregory's golf club, every check cashed. The total was at the bottom, glowing in a bold, horrifying font. $372,800, and that was just the gifts. That wasn't the fraud. They didn't just drain you, Reagan, Cassandra said, watching my face. They leveraged you. She swiped something on her end. A new document appeared on my laptop screen. It was a pre-drafted, multi-page email. The to field was populated with a long list of addresses the chief fraud investigators at my 3 main banks, the risk officers at TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, and 2 names I didn't recognize at the Cook County District Attorney's Office. The subject line was Formal Criminal Complaint and Identity Theft Report. The body of the email detailed, with cold, legal precision, every action they had taken, the dates, the amounts, the IP addresses, logged from my mother's email account, that were used to authorize transfers from my accounts. All it needs, Cassandra said, is your final authorization. The moment you sign the victim's authorization in your lap, I have your permission to hit send on that email. We report everything, all at once. We don't give them time to coordinate. We don't give them time to hide assets or delete files. My hand was shaking. This was no longer just canceling a mortgage payment. This was an act of war. This was the nuclear option. Tonight, Cassandra said, her voice softening just a fraction. We do one thing. We close the valve. We stop the bleeding. Right now, you are a compromised asset. By morning, you will be a secured one. The car was turning onto the State Street Bridge. The lights of the city skyline glittered on the dark water of the river. It was beautiful, a city of steel and glass, and I suddenly felt impossibly, terrifyingly alone. I picked up the stylus. I signed my name on the digital line of the emergency authorization. Reagan Taylor. Done, I whispered. On Cassandra's end, I heard a distinct click of a mouse. It's sent, she said. The reports are filed. The machine is running. Check your phone. I looked down. A new text message had just arrived. It wasn't from my family. It was a fraud alert from my bank. Bank alert. A lock has been placed on all correspondence address changes for your primary credit line, per your request. All new card requests or address verifications will require in-person biometric confirmation. We just locked them out of your mail, Cassandra said, a grim smile touching her lips. They can't order new cards in your name to the West Haven house anymore. The first seal is in place. The car was moving faster now, heading north, away from the glittering downtown core, and then a new notification, a different one. It was a text message from a number I did not recognize. This is a notification from First National Lenders. Your personal loan for $48,500 is now 60 days past due. Please contact our collections department immediately. I stared at it. My blood went cold. Cassandra, I said, my voice hoarse. I don't have a personal loan. I know, she said, her voice grim. We found it 3 days ago. They opened it 8 months ago. Signature forgery. The money was wired to an LLC that Gregory controls. It's in the report I just sent. Now, forward that text to me, and then call your bank's fraud line. The number is on the tablet. Use the car's speakerphone. I want to listen. My hands were numb. I did as she said. I navigated the automated menu, my voice hollow. Fraud and Identity Theft Services. This is Michael. My name is Reagan Taylor, I said, reading from the script Cassandra had provided. I am the victim of an ongoing identity theft and financial fraud scheme. I am in a secure location with my legal counsel. I need to report a fraudulent loan associated with my Social Security number, account number ending in... One moment, Ms. Taylor. There was a rapid clicking of keys. Yes, I see the fraud alert just placed on your file by our Central Risk Department, and, oh, wow, yes, I see the formal report. It's extensive. I need you to flag my entire file for identity theft, I said, gaining strength. I want a 7-year alert. I want a verbal password required for all transactions. And I want that $48,000 loan frozen and marked as fraudulent, effective immediately. Yes, ma'am, the agent said, his tone suddenly deferential. Consider it done. As I was hanging up, my personal phone lit up again. It was a new text from Lorraine. It wasn't words. It was a picture. It was a close-up of her wrist. She was wearing the digital heart rate monitor I had bought her last Christmas. The screen was visible, showing a heart rate of 132 beats per minute. Above the picture, a single sentence. Are you happy now? I looked at the picture, the wrist, the expensive watch, the implication. You are killing me. The same threat she had used since I was 24. The same emotional blackmail that had cost me almost $400,000. I looked at the number, 132. High, for a person sitting at a restaurant, but not fatal. It was the heart rate of someone who was furious, or perhaps had just run up a flight of stairs. It was the heart rate of a liar. Reagan, Cassandra said softly from the tablet. I held the phone up so she could see the picture. She nodded. No pity, just analysis. The final weapon, she said. The guilt bomb. How do you respond? I looked at the message from Lorraine. I thought about the $48,000 loan I had just discovered. I thought about the canceled mortgage. I thought about the word ATM. I typed one word. No. I hit send. The Suburban was pulling into a dark and unmarked underground garage. The driver killed the engine. The silence in the car was absolute. Good, Cassandra said. Now, let's get to work. We have about 6 hours before they figure out what a police report really means. Her image vanished from the screen. The driver opened my door. "This way, Ms. Taylor." I followed him to a private, unmarked elevator. The steel doors slid open. I stepped inside. The doors closed. The sound heavy and final, like a curtain falling at the end of a very long, very bad play. The stage was dark, and I was, for the first time, in the wings. The elevator doors opened into silence. This was not the opulent, client-facing lobby of Price Dallow. There was no marble, no receptionist, no plush seating. This was a secure data facility in an anonymous building, a place that smelled of cooled electronics, industrial-grade carpet, and ozone. The only sounds were the faint, high-pitched hum of servers and the rhythmic, shuffling sigh of a large commercial scanner. Cassandra Price was waiting for me in a glass-walled conference room. The lights were low, but her desk was illuminated by the bright white glow of a single architect's lamp, carving her face out of the shadows. The long table was covered in neat stacks of paper. "Coffee?" she asked, not looking up from a document she was highlighting. "Yes, black, please." My voice was a dry rasp. She nodded toward a high-end machine in the corner. "Help yourself. We have about 4 hours of work before the banks open in New York. We need to have the second-wave blockade in place by then." I poured the coffee, my hand steadier now. The hot, bitter liquid was a comfort. I sat opposite her. The glass table was cold under my forearms. "This," she said, pushing a thick, spiral-bound report toward me, "is the full forensic analysis. The document we attached to the email was the executive summary. This is the anatomy." I opened the cover. The first page was a flowchart, a box at the center, labeled Reagan Taylor, Primary Accounts, had dozens of arrows pointing outward, a sunburst of financial hemorrhage. The arrows led to other boxes. West Haven Lane Mortgage, G. Whitaker Amex, Lorraine Whitaker LLC, Sloan Vale Wedding Fund. The total at the bottom of the page was the one I had seen in the car. $372,800, the amount I had given them, the price of my filial piety. "That's the baseline," Cassandra said, as if reading my mind. "We call that the emotional leverage total. It's ugly, but it's largely not criminal. You authorized those transfers. You were coerced, manipulated, and emotionally blackmailed, but you clicked the confirm button." She flipped the page for me. "This is the part that matters. Page 2, the fraud." It was a separate, smaller list, but it felt infinitely heavier. 1. A personal loan for $48,500 from First National lenders. 2. A Capital One Visa card. Current balance $7,210. 3. A Chase Sapphire card. Current balance $5,900. 4. A department store card for a high-end furniture chain. Current balance $1,390. Total fraudulent debt $63,000. "All opened within the last 18 months, Cassandra said, her voice a flat, clinical monotone. "All opened using your Social Security number. All mail directed to the West Haven Lane address. They were getting sloppy. The loan was the big escalation." She pushed another, thinner file toward me. "The proof. We subpoenaed the IP logs from the credit card companies and the lender based on the initial fraud flags we raised last week. The application for the Capital One card was completed on an IP address registered to your father's personal iPad. We have the device ID." My breath hitched. "It gets better," she said, tapping another line. "The two-factor authentication codes for the Chase card. The ones sent to verify your identity. They were sent to an email address, lwhitakerconsulting@gmail.com, your mother's email. It wasn't just my father. It was both of them. A conspiracy." My mind flashed to the restaurant, my mother's calm, icy smile. "You'll beg to come back." She wasn't just a passive beneficiary. She was an active partner. "The loan?" I whispered. "The $48,000. The signature on the digital application was a high-resolution scan, Cassandra said. It matches the signature on a birthday card you apparently sent them 2 years ago. The one we found in their public social media photos. Gregory posted a picture of it. Best daughter ever. He must have scanned it and kept the file. I felt bile rise in my throat. I swallowed it down with the bitter coffee. Now, she said. Your part. She pointed to my phone, which I'd placed on the table. You have voicemails from them, from tonight, and from before. The ones you told my associate about. We need to log them. I nodded, my fingers feeling thick and clumsy. I opened my phone. The missed calls and texts were a torrent, a digital scream of rage. I ignored them and went to my voicemail. There were 4 new ones since I'd left the restaurant, and then there were the ones I had saved, the old ones, the ones I kept, I don't know why, as proof of my own pain. This one, I said, is from 3 months ago, the last time I said no to a business investment for my father. I pressed play and put the phone on speaker. My father's voice, thick with brandy and false bonhomie, filled the sterile room. Reagan, sweetheart, your mother and I we're just worried about you. You sound so stressed. You're working so hard. This opportunity, the one I told you about, it's not for me. It's to secure your future, your mother's future. I'm trying to build a legacy here. The warmth evaporated. His voice dropped, became gravelly, hard. You say no. You're not just insulting me. You're telling your mother you don't care if she ends up on the street. You're telling the whole family, all our friends, that you're too good for us. I'd hate to have to tell Aunt Margot how you're treating us. I'd hate for her to know how selfish her brilliant niece has become. Just think about that. Think about your reputation. Call me back. The message ended. The silence that followed was heavy. I looked at Cassandra. She was unmoved. Shame, guilt, public reputation, a classic emotional pincer move. I saved the audio file. I emailed it to her. Exhibit A, I typed. I did the same for 3 more. One from Sloane, weeping hysterically about how I was ruining her skin with stress. One from my mother, a whispering, breathless message about chest pains after I'd refused to pay for a new roof. Exhibit B, Exhibit C, Exhibit D. This is a clear, documented pattern of coercion, Cassandra said, archiving the files. Which brings us to the police report. I tensed. This was the part I dreaded. Is it absolutely necessary? Can't we just handle this with the banks? Cassandra leaned back, steepling her fingers. For the first time, she looked at me not as a client, but as a person. Reagan, she said, I need you to understand this. The banks do not care about your feelings. They do not care that your mother is a narcissist or that your father is a failed CEO. They care about one thing: who pays the $63,000 bill. She leaned forward again, her voice intense. Right now, in their system, you are a co-conspirator. You are a family member in a financial dispute. You live in the same city. You have a history of giving them money. As far as they're concerned, this is a civil matter. You are liable. The only thing that transforms this from a family dispute into a crime is that, she pointed to the top document on her stack, a filed police report. The moment that report exists, you are no longer a debtor. You are a legally recognized victim of a felony. The banks are required by federal law to discharge the fraudulent debt. They will write it off, and they will turn their full investigative power onto the perpetrators. The report is your shield. It's the only thing that separates you from that $63,000. It is not a play. It is not a negotiation tactic. It is the one, mandatory, non-negotiable key to your financial freedom. Do you understand? I nodded slowly. I file, or I pay. You file, or you pay, she confirmed. So, we file. She slid a document across the table. This is the plan. Step 1 credit. Lockdown. We did that in the car. Your files at all 3 bureaus are now frozen. Nothing new gets opened in your name. Period. Step 2. Criminal reporting. The email I sent was the opening salvo. The police report is the canon. We are filing it tonight, in person, at the 17th Precinct. You will sign the affidavit, and my associate will file it. Step 3. Conditional restitution. Once the report is filed, we have leverage. We then approach your parents not as a daughter, but as a victim's counsel, and we offer them a deal. They liquidate assets. They pay back the $63,000, and in return, you, the victim, will recommend a suspended sentence or probation to the district attorney. They avoid jail. You get your name cleared and your money back. They refuse. She shrugged. We let the DA handle it. My mind was reeling. Jail, a suspended sentence. This was real. A thought struck me. A sudden, sharp panic. My brother, I said. Theo, he's not part of this. He never has been. I fumbled with my phone, my hands shaking again. I scrolled past the rage texts from Sloan and my parents, and there it was. One text, from 2 hours ago, right after I'd left the restaurant. Theo, are you okay? That was it. No demands, no guilt, just a question. He's the only one, I whispered, showing her the screen. He and his wife, Nadia, they're clean. He can't be. He can't be caught in this. I won't do it if he gets hurt. Cassandra looked at the text. She nodded. Good. It's smart to isolate allies. We can carve him out. We'll add a provision to our communications that all contact must be direct, bypassing any intermediaries. We'll make it clear our dispute is only with Gregory and Lorraine. Theo's clean. He stays clean. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Okay, good. Thank you. Don't thank me. It's smart strategy. She pulled another file from the stack. Now, for the emotional IV. I blinked. What? The guilt? The heart attacks? She opened the file. It was a spreadsheet. My team cross-referenced the dates of the 8 largest emergency transfers you've made in the last 2 years with public hospital data and the few medical bills you were able to forward to us, the ones Lorraine accidentally sent you. She turned the sheet so I could read it. Column A was a date. Column B was a transfer amount. $6,000. Column C was the reason. ER visit. Potential cardiac event. Column D. Column D was the mortgage payment schedule for the West Haven Lane house. 8 of her 9 panic attacks since you took over the mortgage payments, Cassandra said, occurred within 24 hours of the due date. The one exception was when she wanted a new patio set. I stared at the grid. The pattern was undeniable. It wasn't panic. It was a script. It was performance. It was a tool, wielded with surgical precision, to extract money. They timed it, I said, the words numb. She faked heart attacks to pay the mortgage. She faked a crisis to manufacture your compliance, Cassandra corrected. And it worked, every single time. This is why we file. She pushed another document toward me. This is the official Federal Trade Commission identity theft affidavit. You will sign this. It's a sworn statement, under penalty of perjury, that you did not open these accounts. This goes to the bureaus and the banks. It is the legal declaration of your innocence. I picked up the pen. It felt heavy as a brick. I read the dry legal text. I declare under penalty of perjury that the information I have provided. I signed my name, Reagan Taylor. Cassandra took it. Good. Now, we place the 7-year fraud alert, and we request a full list of all hard credit inquiries on your file for the last 24 months. Why? Because I want to know who else they applied to. I want to know how many times they tried and failed. I want to see the full scope of their desperation. She was typing furiously on her laptop. Done. The alert is active. The request for your full file is filed. She finally sat back, the first hint of something other than clinical precision in her eyes. It might have been satisfaction. You have to understand. Reagan, she said, what we did tonight, they have been siphoning your money for years. That's the primary bleed. But they've also been living on your emotional credit, the guilt, the shame, the fear of their disapproval, the terror that you'd be a bad daughter. That's the secondary line. That's the emotional IV, pumping you full of poison to keep you compliant while they drain the blood. Tonight, you just cut that line. I processed her words. I thought of the picture of my mother's wrist, her faked heart rate. I thought of my father's blustering voicemail. It all seemed so transparent. Now, so crude. A small, tight smile touched my lips. It was the first one I'd felt in hours. It wasn't a smile of happiness. It was the smile of relief. The feeling of a tight, constricting band around your chest finally being unstrapped. It was the first full breath I'd taken in a decade. My phone buzzed on the table. A new email. It was an automated alert from my bank. Subject account security notification. This email is to confirm that a supplementary card associated with your account, card ending in 4091 issued to Gregory Whitaker, has been successfully revoked and deactivated as per your request. The first valve was closed. The machine was off. I spent the night in a high-security corporate apartment that Price Dallow kept for clients in sensitive situations. I did not sleep. I sat on a perfectly impersonal gray sofa, watching the Chicago skyline dissolve from black to bruised purple, then to a flat, metallic gray. I drank 3 cups of bitter, lukewarm coffee from a machine I barely knew how to work. At 8:15 in the morning, my phone, a new, clean burner phone Cassandra had given me, buzzed. It was her. "It's time. You make the call. Stick to the script. No emotion. Reagan, you are a corporation executing a transaction." I nodded. Though she couldn't see me, I took a deep breath, the air stale with manufactured neutrality. I dialed the number to the West Haven Lane house. Lorraine picked up on the first ring. Her voice was a spike of pure, unfiltered panic. "Reagan. Oh, thank God. Reagan. Your father and I have been frantic. Your sister. We've been calling. Why wouldn't you answer?" I cut her off. My voice was flat. It was a voice I used for difficult trades at work. 10 a.m., you and Gregory, the offices of Price and Dallow. My lawyers will text you the address. Do not be late. There was a dead, shocked silence on the line. I could hear her processing, the gears turning, shifting from panic to calculation. Then, the most sickening sound of all relief, a warm, condescending, triumphant chuckle flooded the receiver. She thought she had won. She thought this was my surrender. "Oh, darling," Lorraine breathed, her voice dripping with magnanimous, forgiving warmth. "Oh, thank heavens. You've wised up. You realized how silly this all was. Of course, dear. We'll be there. We'll sort out this little misunderstanding." I hung up the phone while she was in the middle of that last, patronizing word. At 9:45, I was seated in the main conference room. This was not the anonymous data facility. This was the show floor. This was the theater. The room was a fortress of polished mahogany, floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the river, and the profound, intimidating silence of generational wealth. The air smelled of old wood, faint lemon oil, and paper. The long table was polished to a black mirror. My place was set. In front of my chair sat a heavy, gleaming brass nameplate, R. Taylor. Beside it, a pitcher of iced water with beads of condensation, a single, heavy crystal tumbler, already filled, and a crisp yellow legal pad. A heavy black fountain pen was placed perfectly parallel to it. Across the vast expanse of wood, 2 more settings were arranged, identical, G. Whitaker, L. Whitaker, 2 empty tumblers. In the precise center of the table sat the only piece of technology, a flat, black, professional-grade digital audio recorder. As I sat, Cassandra entered and took her place at the head of the table. She pressed a button. A small, bright red light illuminated. A single, unblinking eye. "This is a formal mediation," she said, her voice perfectly modulated, filling the room without being loud. "Every word spoken in this room from this moment forward is on the record." I stared at the red light. It felt like the only warm thing in the room. At 10:03, the heavy oak doors opened. Gregory Whittaker entered first. He strode into the room, not walked. He was in his full armor, the charcoal gray, pinstriped boardroom suit, a power blue tie, and an expression of profound, unshakable confidence. He looked like a man about to acquire a minor, troublesome asset. He scanned the room, the brass nameplates, the intimidating skyline, and he smirked. He was impressed by this show. Lorraine followed, a study in practiced, supportive grace. She wore the pearls, always the pearls. They glowed against a cream-colored silk blouse. She clutched her handbag, smiling faintly, a mask of maternal concern, ready to forgive her hysterical, dramatic child. "Well," Gregory boomed, pulling out his chair without asking, the legs scraping loudly against the floor. He ignored me completely, addressing Cassandra as an equal. "Cassandra, is it quite the production? My daughter, as you've likely gathered, is prone to theatrics." Lorraine sat, arranging her skirt. "Reagan, darling, this has gone quite far enough." Her voice was a gentle chide. She smiled at Cassandra, a woman-to-woman gesture of shared burden. "This is all just a simple family misunderstanding. Reagan gets very emotional. We're here to clear it up." Cassandra did not smile. She waited, her hands folded on the table in front of her. She let the silence stretch, amplified by the presence of the ticking wall clock and the steady humming red light of the recorder. Gregory's smirk began to tighten at the edges. Lorraine's placid smile became fixed. "Good morning," Cassandra said finally, her voice cutting through the silence like a scalpel. "Let me be perfectly clear. This is not a misunderstanding. This is not a negotiation. And it is not a family chat. This is a formal damage control meeting. For you." Gregory's face twitched. "Now, see here." Cassandra raised a hand, and he stopped. She reached down and slid a single, thick, spiral-bound document across the mirrored surface of the table. It glided, silent, and stopped perfectly in the center, equidistant from both of them. "What's this?" Gregory scoffed, gesturing to it. "The bill for this ridiculous performance. I'm not paying it." "That," Cassandra said, "is a copy of the official police report. Case number 82491, filed at 11:03 p.m. last night with the Chicago Police Department. It details the felony counts of identity theft and financial fraud pertaining to one personal loan and 3 unsecured credit cards, all opened in Reagan Taylor's name. It has been accepted by the Financial Crimes Division." The change was instantaneous. It was chemical. Lorraine's face, so carefully composed, simply collapsed. The blood drained from her cheeks, leaving her skin a waxy, sallow gray. Her hand, which had been reaching for her empty water glass, froze in midair. Gregory's face did the precise opposite. A dark, mottled, purple-red flush exploded from his collar, climbing his neck and swallowing his entire face. He stared at the document as if it were a bomb. You what?" "It is a legal prerequisite," Cassandra continued, her voice a relentless, cool monotone. "To discharge the $63,000 of fraudulent debt tied to her Social Security number, my client is required by federal law to file a formal criminal police report. She is, by definition, a victim. The report is the legal shield that separates her from the debt. It is not a threat. It is done." Gregory shot to his feet. The chair flew back, crashing into the credenza behind him. "You little traitor!" he roared, his voice cracking, pointing a shaking finger at me. "This is a family matter. You don't bring the police into this." I flinched. The old reflex, the cower, was so deep it was in my bones. But I didn't look away. Cassandra didn't even raise her voice. She looked up at his towering, furious form. "Sit down, Mr. Whittaker. I will not—" "The law," she cut him off, "does not recognize an exception for family matters when prosecuting felony identity theft. Sit down, or I will have security remove you, and we will proceed in your absence." Gregory stood there, his chest heaving, his face a mask of apoplectic rage. He was a king whose subjects had just produced a guillotine. Slowly, trembling with a fury that had nowhere to go. He sank back into his chair. The CEO was gone. Only the red-faced, terrified man remained. Cassandra slid a second, single sheet of paper onto the table. This is the financial summary. We are not, at this time, discussing the $372,800 in coerced funds you have extracted from my client over the past 5 years. We have categorized that as the cost of escape, a death by 1,000 cuts, and a lesson learned. Lorraine made a small, choking sound. We are focused, Cassandra said, exclusively on the $63,000 of active, criminal fraud. She held up one perfectly manicured finger. You have 2 options. This is a binary choice. Option A. You make restitution. You will sign the documents I am about to provide, authorizing the immediate brokered sale of the West Haven Lane property. The funds from that sale will be paid into a third-party escrow account, which will directly and immediately satisfy the $63,000 debt. You will also sign a binding, 10-year civil restraining order, prohibiting you from any and all contact with my client, her residence, her place of work, or her finances. In return, Reagan, as the victim, will recommend to the district attorney's office that you receive a suspended sentence based on full and immediate restitution. She held up a second finger. Option B. You refuse. This meeting ends. My client will cooperate fully with the active and ongoing criminal investigation. We will hand over the IP logs from your iPad, the audio files of your coercive voicemails, the digital analysis of the forged loan signature, and the spreadsheet correlating your medical emergencies to your mortgage due dates. The prosecutor, who I spoke with this morning, is extremely interested in this case. You will be arrested. You will be prosecuted. You will likely serve time. She leaned back. The choice is yours. Restitution or prosecution? The silence that fell was absolute. It was heavier than the table, thicker than the glass. The only sound in the entire vast room was the quiet, metallic tick, tick, tick of the large clock on the wall. Lorraine, desperate, found her voice. She turned to me, her eyes filling with huge, tragic tears. The pearls seemed to quiver with her sorrow. This was the final performance, the one that had never failed. Reagan, she whispered, her voice breaking. How can you... After everything I did for you, I gave up. I gave up everything. She looked at Cassandra, then back at me. A true martyr. I gave up my career to raise you. I could have been anything. I sacrificed my entire life. For you, for Theo, for your sister. The old familiar poison, the guilt, it pricked at me. A phantom pain in a limb I was trying to sever. I looked at her. I saw the tears. I saw the pearls. I saw the woman who had faked heart palpitations to pay for a house I was already paying for. I leaned forward, toward the microphone, toward the little red light. No, I said. My voice was low, and it did not shake. You didn't give up your career for me. You gave it up because you didn't want to work. You gave it up to live the life you wanted, the country club, the luncheons, the status. You didn't sacrifice your life, Mother. You just decided I would be the one to pay your bills. Lorraine's mouth fell open. The tears stopped as if a faucet had been turned off. Her face, stripped of its martyrdom, was just empty, on the credenza behind her, where she'd been forced to leave her purse. Her phone began to vibrate. A text, then another, a frantic, buzzing rattle. I knew, instinctively, who it was. It was Sloane. I could picture the scene perfectly. Preston, her wealthy fiancé, whose family valued discretion above all else, texting her, Sloane, what is going on? My father just called. Why are your parents meeting with criminal lawyers, Sloane? Her entire Santorini Vista estate dream dissolving in a haze of fraud and police reports. In a full-blown panic, the next link in the chain was breaking. Cassandra let my words hang in the air for 1, 2, 3 beats. Then, She moved. She slid a final thick stack of documents across the black, mirrored wood. The fountain pen was right beside it. "This is the agreement for sale and the escrow authorization," she said. "It names an independent, court-approved realtor. It dictates the terms. It routes the funds. It is everything you need to choose option A." She glanced at the ticking clock. "You have until the top of the hour, then I make the call." Gregory stared at the papers. He looked at the pen. He looked at me, his eyes dead. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He closed it again. The man who had dominated every dinner, every holiday, every conversation for my entire life. The CEO, the patriarch, the man who had, less than 24 hours ago, laughed and called me a broken ATM. He had no more words. The only sound in the room was the clock. Ticking, ticking, ticking. The clock on the wall did not stop ticking just because my father had run out of words. The silence in that room was a living, breathing thing. A predator. Gregory and Lorraine sat trapped in it. Two statues carved from wax, melting under the single, unblinking red light of the recorder. They didn't sign. Not then. Gregory, in a final, pathetic parody of his former power, had mumbled something about consulting our own counsel. Cassandra had smiled, a thin, sharp, dangerous smile. "Please do. They will be speaking with me, or with the district attorney's office. Your choice. You have 72 hours. The meeting ended. They shuffled out of the room, not striding. They looked 20 years older. They looked like what they were defeated. I went back to the secure data facility. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving behind a cold, hollow exhaustion. But Cassandra was a machine. The war room, as I had come to think of it, was already prepared for the next phase. The whiteboards were covered in flowcharts. "They won't sign yet," Cassandra said, pacing in front of a timeline. "They're in shock, pride, denial, rage. They have to cycle through it all. They still believe they can find a new angle, a new source of leverage. We do not give them one." She tapped the board. Plan A is the document they are holding, the clean, simple sale and restitution. It is their only good option, but they won't take it until we show them that Plan B and Plan C are infinitely worse. "Plan B?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Plan B," she said, "is if they miss the 72-hour deadline. The moment they do, we file an emergency petition for an asset freeze on all known joint accounts. We attach the police report, the loan fraud evidence, and the affidavit of coercion. We argue that they are a flight risk and are actively attempting to dissipate assets that should be subject to criminal restitution." She pointed to a bank logo. "We freeze their primary checking account, the one Gregory uses for his golf club, the one Lorraine uses for, well, everything. We turn off their water, no more $300 dinners, no more gas for the Lexus, no more ability to hire the lawyer Gregory just threatened us with. We make it impossible for them to function. And Plan C," she said, her voice dropping, "is if they try to move money or fight the freeze. Plan C is a full-packet subpoena to their telecommunications provider. We don't just show the IP log from your father's iPad. We get a court order for the GPS and cell tower triangulation data from his and your mother's phones, correlating their exact physical location with the precise moment each fraudulent application was submitted. We prove, beyond any doubt, that they were both at the West Haven Lane house, using their devices, to commit felonies in your name. Plan B is a chokehold. Plan C is a bullet." "My job," she explained, "was to be a black hole. No contact, no response. Every text, every call, every email was to be screened, logged, and forwarded to her. The first test came that night. My personal phone, the one I had silenced, was a wasteland of missed calls. But my burner phone, the one only 2 people had the number for, rang. It was Theo. I answered, my heart a cold knot. "Theo. Reagan." His voice was wrecked. He sounded exhausted. God. Ray, what is going on? They came here. Here was his small, two-bedroom apartment, the one he shared with Nadia and their baby. "They just left," he said, his voice cracking. They were... I've never seen them like that. Dad was purple. Mom was just... whispering. It was terrifying. What did they want? Theo, I asked. Though I already knew. He was quiet for a long time. I heard him take a shaky breath. They asked me for money, not for a wedding, for a lawyer. A criminal lawyer. They said you've lost your mind, that you're trying to send them to jail, that you've allied with strangers to destroy the family. And the money, I kept my voice even, cold, transactional. They said they needed $25,000 for a retainer. They said since you were unavailable, it was my turn to step up, my turn to be the responsible son. He laughed, a short, bitter, heartbreaking sound. My turn to be the new ATM. I closed my eyes. They were contagious. They were a plague. And they were trying to infect the only clean part of my life. "Listen to me, Theo," I said, my voice hard as the glass in Cassandra's office. "You will not give them $1. You have a wife and a child. Your only responsibility is to them. Tomorrow morning, you and Nadia are to go to a completely new bank, one you have no history with. You will open a new joint account. You will move your paychecks there. You will not tell them. You will not link it to any old accounts. You will protect your family. Ray, they're our parents. They are criminals." "Theo," I said, the word tasting like metal. "They used my social security number to steal $63,000. That is not a family dispute. That is a felony. You are not to engage. You are not to mediate. You are not to pay. Do you understand me?" He was silent. Then, a small, "Yes, I understand." "Good. Stay clean. Theo, stay out of it." I hung up. I saved a transcript of the call and sent it to Cassandra. She replied in 2 minutes. "Good. You're isolating them. They have no new supply." The next barrage came from Sloan. Her texts were a digital avalanche of pure, ID-driven panic. "They're going to sell the house where am I supposed to get married from. Preston is asking questions. His father is asking questions. This is a nightmare. You know what they call this? Know your customer. Preston's dad's company has a compliance department. They're doing a background check on mom and dad because of the wedding announcement. They're going to find the police report. You did this. Preston isn't answering my calls. Preston isn't answering me. If this wedding is ruined, Reagan, I will never, ever forgive you. People will laugh at me. They will all laugh at me." I read the texts, one after another. I felt nothing. The part of me that used to ignite with guilt at Sloane's tears was just gone. It was a burnt-out fuse. I forwarded the entire thread to Cassandra. "Preston is out," she said at our morning brief. "The Vale family will not attach their name to a criminal fraud proceeding. Sloane's primary leverage, her fiancé, is now gone. They are losing allies faster than they can make them." More evidence trickled in, solidifying the walls. The private investigator Cassandra had hired delivered his first report. He had been tailing Gregory for 2 weeks, ever since I had first retained the firm. "Your father's job search," Cassandra said, sliding a glossy 8x10 photo across the table. "Consists primarily of this." It was a picture of my father, mid-swing, on the 9th hole of a very green, very expensive golf course. He was in shorts, a pink polo shirt, laughing with 3 other men. The timestamp on the photo was from a Tuesday, at 11:30 a.m. "My team," she continued, "cross-referenced the GPS data from that photo with the withdrawal slips you forwarded us last month. The emergency $5,000 withdrawal from your account, the one for the urgent roof repair. It happened at an ATM 10 minutes from this golf course, exactly 45 minutes before this photo was taken." I stared at the picture. The lie was so blatant, so lazy. He hadn't even bothered to hide it. I saved the file. I dragged it into a new, encrypted folder on my laptop. I named the folder Proof of Pattern. Then Lorraine made her move, desperate, and with her primary ATM cut off. She went to the secondary market, our extended family. She called my Aunt Margot, my mother's older, wealthier, and far more sensible sister. It did not go well. Aunt Margot, who had never liked Gregory, did not call me. She called Cassandra. Your aunt, Cassandra reported, informs me that Lorraine called her, weeping, asking for $50,000 to save the family from ruin. She claimed you had been brainwashed by a vicious lawyer and were being extorted. And Aunt Margot, Cassandra said, a rare hint of amusement in her voice, is no one's fool. She told Lorraine that, based on her own math, you had already paid for the West Haven Lane house twice over. Then she emailed us this. She forwarded the email. It was a scanned copy of a check, dated 3 years prior, a check for $10,000, from me to Aunt Margot. You paid her back, Cassandra asked. The first genuine surprise I'd heard from her. It was a bridge loan my parents took from her, I said, the memory tasting like ash. For a can't-miss investment, they never paid her back. I did. I couldn't stand the shame. Well, Cassandra said, your shame just became our asset. Margot faxed this to Lorraine with a note. The Reagan-Taylor Family Bank is closed. Do not call me again. Their credit line with the entire extended family is now officially severed. I dragged the scanned check into the Proof of Pattern folder. The final, technical nail in the coffin arrived via secured email from my bank. The forensic audio department had completed its analysis. Revoice verification for Capital One card activation account. 90/12. We have completed a comparison of the voice recording from the activation call, dated October 14th, with the voice exemplars you provided from saved voicemails. Our analysis confirms a 99.9% match. The individual who activated the fraudulent card was, conclusively, Gregory Whitaker. I added the PDF to the folder. We even received a response from their homeowner's insurance, whom Gregory had apparently, in a fit of insane optimism, called to see if his policy covered legal disputes. The response was a single, curt paragraph, ending with, "This policy explicitly excludes any and all claims arising from acts of moral turpitude, malfeasance, or criminal fraud perpetrated by the insured." They have no money, Cassandra summarized, ticking points off on her fingers. They have no new credit line. They have no family support. Their social standing is collapsing. And we have voice print, GPS, and time-stamped photographic proof of their crimes. They are in a box. The only question is how much they'll thrash before they realize it. She looked at me. I am adding a final item to the settlement agreement, a breach of trust provision, a 10-year, legally binding, court-enforced order prohibiting any financial contact. They cannot ask you for money. They cannot imply they need money. They cannot have a third party ask for money. Any violation, and the original suspended sentence is revoked. Period. She was about to say more, but her desk phone buzzed. She listened, her face hardening. Where Northwestern Memorial, when? She hung up, her eyes sharp as glass. Get your coat. What? Why? That was our Lorraine was just admitted to the emergency room. She called 911 from the house, claimed she was having a heart attack. The old familiar ice water flooded my veins. The guilt, the panic. You are killing your mother. I stood up, my chair scraping. Oh my God, is she? She's fine, Cassandra snapped, grabbing her own coat. The PI has a source inside. She was triaged. Vitals are stable. EKG is normal. Troponin levels are 0. There are no signs of cardiac infarction. She's not having a heart attack. Reagan, she's creating an alibi. She's manufacturing a defense of extreme stress and making one last desperate play for your sympathy. I stopped. I looked at the PI's photo of my father on the golf course. I looked at the bank's audio analysis. I looked at the spreadsheet correlating her panic attacks with the mortgage. I took a deep breath. The ice in my veins didn't melt. It hardened. It became steel. Sympathy, I said, my voice quiet and cold, is not co-signing. She can have all the sympathy she wants. From a hospital bed, she's not getting my signature. Cassandra looked at me, a long, appraising look. She nodded. Good, because the clock is ticking. This changes nothing. We turned, not to the hospital, but to the conference room. We stick to the plan, I said. We give them the full 72 hours. Let them sit in the box they built. Cassandra and her team, the PI, included. All looked at each other. They nodded. The deadline was set. The trap was locked. All we had to do was wait. Lorraine's manufactured heart attack failed to produce the desired effect. I did not rush to the hospital. I did not call, weeping, to beg for her forgiveness. I did not stop the 72-hour clock. I simply waited, and the thrashing began. On the second day, Gregory, realizing his emotional blackmail had lost its currency, reverted to his default setting brute force intimidation. I got a frantic call at my desk from the concierge in my apartment building. I only answered because it was the building's main line. Ms. Taylor, Jose said, his voice tight with panic. Your father is here, in the lobby. He's not listening to me. He's demanding to be let up. Do not let him up, Jose, I said, my voice cold. He is not a resident. He is not on my guest list. He is trespassing. Sir, you cannot. Ms. Taylor. He's yelling. He's causing a scene. I could hear him then, a muffled, apoplectic roar in the background. My daughter. Who the hell do you think? I own this family. Jose, I said. Call building security. If he refuses to leave, call the police. I am hanging up now. An hour later, I received an email from Cassandra. The subject line was Exhibit E. Attached was a video file, pulled from my building's lobby security feed. It was Gregory, his face purple, jabbing his finger in Jose's face. The audio was crystal clear. You tell her, my father spat, his voice a low, vicious snarl, that she will regret this. You tell her I am not done. You tell her she will be on her knees, begging. Before this is over, I will destroy her. I will destroy her reputation. You tell her that. He threatened a building employee, Cassandra said in the body of the email. He threatened you. On camera. To a third-party witness. This is gold. It's already been added to the police report as a supplemental file. With her direct lines of attack failing, Lorraine turned to the one weapon she had left public opinion, the weapon of shame, a text from her. The first since the disastrous meeting. The family press will know just how ungrateful and cruel you are. Aunt Margot will be so ashamed. Everyone at the club will know what you've done to your sick mother. The family press, I knew, meant her network of country club friends and distant relatives. It was a pathetic, small-town threat, a whisper campaign. It was immediately followed by Sloane, who took the fight to her own battlefield, social media. A new Instagram story popped up. It was a filtered black-and-white photo of her and Lorraine, years ago, smiling. The text, in a flowing, faux handwritten script, read, Family over everything, no matter how dark it gets. It lasted exactly 1 hour. Cassandra's team, monitoring her public account, screenshotted the comments. Dark, what's wrong? Is the wedding okay? And then, one from a mutual acquaintance who had heard whispers from Theo's wife. Is it true your parents are under criminal investigation? The story was deleted. Sloane's account went silent. The digital lynch mob had turned on its master. The real-world consequences were already in motion, beyond their control. The court-approved realtor, a brisk, efficient woman who was immune to Lorraine's practiced charm, had been given keys under the terms of the escrow agreement. The listing went live. West Haven Lane Colonial, the headline read, Price to sell, must close quickly. It was a fire sale. The news ripped through the closed, gossiping circle of my parents' social life. The family press was no longer asking about my ingratitude. They were asking a different question. I ran into Mary Beth at the club, Aunt Margot reported to me in a brief, satisfied voicemail. She asked me point blank, "Margot, why are the Whitakers selling their house in a panic? Did Gregory's investments finally go bust? The narrative is no longer, Reagan is cruel. The narrative is, the Whitakers are broke and desperate. Shame is a weapon that cuts both ways, dear." My phone, the one that used to be a relentless storm of demands and crises, grew quiet. The daily, hourly, unending stream of texts for money, for favors, for validation. It slowed to a trickle. It turned out that when the vault is closed and locked, people stop rattling the handle. When the ATM is truly, permanently offline, the threats and the weeping messages become shorter, they become less frequent. The silence was unnerving. At first, then, it was peaceful. Nadia, Theo's wife, came to the secure apartment. She brought a bag of groceries and her own pillow. "Theo's at his wit's end," she said, unpacking pasta and a jar of sauce. "But he's okay. He opened the new account. I think he's just processing. He wanted me to make sure you were eating." She stayed for 2 nights. We ate pasta out of bowls on the impersonal gray sofa. We watched a stupid movie. We talked about her baby. We talked about her last shift at the hospital. We talked about my job at Mariner Ridge. We did not, once, mention the sacrifices my mother had made. We did not talk about family duty. We just existed. 2 women breathing in a space that was not defined by my parents' endless, suffocating need. It was the most normal 48 hours I had experienced in my adult life. On the 3rd morning, Nadia left for her shift. I was alone again, but I felt lighter. The counterattacks from my parents became clumsy, desperate, and futile. An automated email from my bank landed in my inbox. Subject security update. A request to change the mailing address on your credit line was received. This request has been denied due to the active security freeze on your account. They were still trying, still rattling the locked doors, hoping one would open. Then, a call from Cassandra. Her voice was sharp. "Theo just called me. He's shaken. Gregory went to his house again, but he didn't ask for money this time. He asked Theo to co-sign a new $50,000 bridge loan. When Theo refused, Gregory, well, he tried to do it anyway." "What do you mean?" Gregory had a copy of Theo's driver's license from an old car insurance file. He tried to apply for the loan online, in Theo's name, from his own iPad. The bank's security system flagged it instantly. The device ID was already on a high-risk watch list from our fraud report, and the social security number didn't match the primary victim's file. It was an immediate, catastrophic failure. "My God," I whispered. "He tried to burn Theo. He was willing to burn his own son." "He's not just a narcissist, Reagan," Cassandra said, her voice cold. "He's a predator, and he's running out of prey." The final detonation came from Sloane's camp, the silent, wealthy, peripheral fiancé Preston Vale. I received a screenshot of a text chain from a new, unknown number. It was from Sloane. She was clearly forwarding me a conversation, an act of pure, spiteful desperation. "Preston, Sloane, my father is handling this now." Sloane, "Handling what?" "What do you mean?" "We'll fix this, Preston. He's spoken to your family's lawyer." Sloane, "We don't have a lawyer." Preston, "The one your sister retained. My father's legal team is liaising with her. He is furious. He said this is a compliance nightmare. He said your family is radioactive." Sloane, "What does that mean, Preston? I love you, Preston. It means we're done. My father is invoking the reputational damage clause in the prenuptial agreement. The wedding is off. The contracts are void." Sloane, "No." Then, a new text. From Sloane, directly to me. "Are you happy now? You got what you wanted? You're not just ruining Mom and Dad. You've ruined me." A few minutes later, another one. The rage was gone. It was replaced by something small, cold, and terrified. A question she had clearly been too afraid to ask. "Reagan, did Mom Did she really take your social security number? Tell me the truth. I looked at the text. I thought about lying. I thought about protecting her. But that was the old Reagan. That was the family ATM. I replied, yes. And Dad's voice is on the audio recording activating the credit card. And Mom's email was used for the two-factor authentication. They both did it. I sent her one more thing. A screenshot Cassandra's team had just recovered from the bank's investigation file. It was from the digital application for the $48,000 loan. It showed the box where the applicant was required to upload a signed document. The file uploaded was an image of my signature, shaky and poorly cropped. The file name was Ray Sig Scan, JPG, and right below it, a timestamp and an IP address. The IP address that led directly back to the West Haven Lane house. Sloan didn't reply. Cassandra called me. She's finally seen it. The denial is broken. They're writing their own indictment for us, aren't they? I said. The words from our first meeting coming back to me. Every single time, Cassandra said. I could hear the smile in her voice. They are their own worst enemies. The PI is pulling the final logs from the hospital. Lorraine's heart attack ended the moment she was told her insurance wouldn't cover an overnight stay for anxiety. She checked herself out 3 hours ago. That night, I turned off the burner phone. I turned off my laptop. I put my personal phone in a drawer. I sat in the silent, gray, impersonal apartment. There were no demands, no emergencies, no faked heart rates. I lay down on the perfectly neutral bed, and for the first time in nearly a decade, I slept. I slept for 7 straight, uninterrupted, pitch-black hours. I woke up to sunlight. It was a strange, unfamiliar feeling. I felt rested. I turned on the burner phone. There was one new email. It wasn't from Cassandra. It wasn't from my family. It was from the Cook County District Attorney's Office. Subject RE Case 82491, A. Taylor, R. versus Whitaker, G. L. Ms. Price, Ms. Taylor. We have reviewed the supplemental file, including the video evidence and the new reports of attempted fraud against Mr. Theodore Whitaker. Our office is taking a significant interest in this pattern of behavior. Please forward all original, uncompressed files at your earliest convenience. We would like to schedule a meeting. The 72-hour deadline was about to expire, and the state of Illinois was now officially watching the clock. The 72 hours were a vacuum, a suspension of all sound, all motion. I was in the eye of the storm I had created, and the silence of the corporate apartment was absolute. The email from the district attorney's office had been forwarded to Cassandra. The final deadline was approaching. The thrashing had paused. They were in their corner. Finally, agonizingly, aware of the box they were in, I used the quiet to build. I went back to my own apartment, the one that still smelled faintly of my own life. The one Gregory had violated with his presence, his rage. The air was stale. I opened the windows. I went to the kitchen. I took a plain white notepad from a drawer. I wrote 3 sentences on it with a thick black marker. I tore the sheet off and stuck it to the center of my stainless steel refrigerator. 1. No money. Not for any reason. Not for any emergency. Not $1. 2. No arguments. Do not engage. Do not explain. Do not defend. Engagement is the trap. 3. All contact through counsel. I do not speak. My lawyers speak. These were the new borders. This was the constitution of my new sovereign state. My population of 1. I picked up the burner phone. I made 1 call. Theo? Ray, he answered, his voice small, exhausted. Listen to me. Theo, this is the last time we're having this conversation. They are going to call you again. They will weep. They will rage. They will tell you that you are the only one who can save them. They will try to make you a bridge to me, or they will try to make you a shield for them. He was silent. I heard him breathing. You are not a bridge. Theo, I said, my voice flat and hard. You are not a shield. You are not their ATM. You are a husband and you are a father. Your only job is Nadia and that baby. Do not carry their messages. Do not ask me for favors for them. Do not get burned. This border is sealed. Are we clear? A long, heavy pause, then a quiet, broken. Clear. Good. I'll talk to you when it's over. I hung up. Next, I fortified the digital walls. I spent 3 hours at my laptop. I changed every password I had. The old ones were compromises, built from pets' names and childhood streets. Vulnerabilities my mother knew as well as I did. The new ones were 32-character strings of generated random code. I ordered a set of physical hardware keys, a 2-factor authentication that required a thumbprint. No one could log into my bank, my email, my investment accounts without my physical presence. I was locking them out of my digital life as thoroughly as I was locking them out of my physical one. I organized the war chest. I created a new, encrypted folder. I labeled it Whitaker Proof of Pattern. I methodically downloaded and filed every piece of evidence. The audio files of my father's voicemails, the screenshots of Sloane's texts, the PDF of the forensic accounting report, the spreadsheet of Lorraine's heart attacks, the video file from my lobby, the one of Gregory threatening Jose, which I now labeled Exhibit D. I saved everything to 2 encrypted USB drives. I would give one to Cassandra, the other would go to the private investigator. This was my emergency file, my insurance. Then, I did something I hadn't done in 5 years. I opened my personal investment portfolio, the one I managed for myself, the small amount of money I had managed to hide, to protect. I looked at the balance. There was a surplus from my last bonus. A sum I had mentally earmarked for the next emergency. There were no more emergencies. I did not transfer the money to a high-yield savings account. I did not send it to my parents. I navigated to an educational site. I found a graduate-level online course, Advanced Strategies in Wealth Management and Personal Finance. It cost $500. I clicked Enroll. I paid for it. It was the first investment I had ever made, purely, 100%, in myself. It felt like breathing. I was making coffee when the burner phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. I knew, instantly, it was Sloane. She must have gotten the number from Theo. I need to talk. Please, not about them. Just us. Please, Ray, I don't know what to do. The rage was gone. The entitlement was gone. It was the first honest message I had ever received from her. This was a test of the new borders. I thought about my rules. No arguments. All contact through counsel. But this was Sloane. She was a victim, too, in her own way, a victim of their indoctrination. I would be strategic, neutral ground, no engagement, just data collection. I texted back, Wren Harbor, 1 hour, come alone. Wren Harbor was a small, anonymous coffee shop halfway between our apartments. It was neutral territory. I saw her before she saw me. She was sitting at a small table by the window, twisting a paper napkin into shreds. She wasn't the Instagram queen. She was 26 years old, and she looked like a terrified child. Her face was scrubbed clean of makeup, her eyes puffy and red-rimmed. She was wearing a simple gray sweatshirt. She looked up as I approached, and the fear in her eyes was bottomless. I sat down. I didn't order anything. He's gone, Ray, she whispered immediately, as if the words were choking her. Preston, he's gone. His father called off the wedding, the venue, the caterers, everything. They're keeping the ring. I just watched her. I did not say, I'm sorry. I did not say, I told you so. I just waited. I don't understand, she said, the tears starting to well up again. Real tears this time, not the performative ones. I don't understand. You always just paid. You always fixed it. The one time it really mattered. The one time I really needed you. Why I thought... She looked at me, her face a mask of genuine, profound confusion. I thought you were infinite. The word hung in the air. Infinite. It was the most honest and the most horrifying thing she had ever said. Sloane, I said, and my voice was quiet. It wasn't angry. It was just tired. Infinite is a myth. It's a fantasy told by people who need money. It's a word invented by takers so they don't have to feel guilty for taking. There's no such thing as an infinite supply. There was just me, and I'm empty. She stared at me, and I could see her processing the words. I could see her, for the first time, looking at me not as a resource, but as a person. "What am I supposed to do?" she finally sobbed, a real, racking sob that shook her whole body. "He's gone. The house is being sold. I have nothing. I don't have a job, not a real one. I have nowhere to go. What am I supposed to do?" This was the moment. The old Reagan would have cracked. The old Reagan would have opened her purse, pulled out a credit card, and said, "It's okay. You can stay with me. We'll figure it out." I did not open my purse. I reached into my coat pocket. I pulled out a small, trifold piece of paper. It was a pamphlet I had printed out that morning from the secure facility. I slid it across the table. "This is a resource," I said. She looked at it. Her eyes scanned the title. "The Haven House. Support for Women in Crisis." She looked up at me, insulted. "What is this, a shelter? Preston didn't hit me. I'm not abused." "Neither did Dad," I said quietly. "But what do you call what they did to me? What do you call what Mom did to you? Raising you to believe your only value was in a man you could marry. That's not a shelter. Sloan, it's a resource center. They have financial counseling. They have job placement services. They have therapists who specialize in situations like this, financial and domestic abuse." "I'm not abused," she hissed, pushing the paper away. "Okay," I said. I stood up. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice rising in panic. "You can't just leave me here." "I have to go," I said. "Rule number 2, no arguments." I left her at the table, staring at the pamphlet. She didn't take it, but her eyes were wet, and it wasn't from sadness anymore. It was from the horrifying, dawning light of understanding. She had seen the bars of her own cage. When I got back to my apartment, I knew someone had been there. The air was different, and there, on the floor, slid halfway under my door, was an envelope. It was cheap, white, and a type I recognized from the hotel down the street. My name. "Reagan" was scrawled on the front in my father's angry, spiky handwriting. I did not touch it with my bare hands. I used a napkin. I opened it. Inside, a single sheet of the hotel's stationery. 5 words. "You owe us. You owe us for your mother's life." The old me would have collapsed. The old me would have called, sobbing. The new me took out my phone. I placed the note on the floor. I photographed it. I photographed the envelope. I attached the files to a new email, to Cassandra Price. Subject Exhibit E, body. This was under my door. Add it to the file. We are done waiting. My burner phone rang 2 hours later. It was Cassandra. The 72-hour deadline was set to expire in 1 hour. "They just blinked," Cassandra said. Her voice was pure ice. "What?" "They hired a lawyer, a bottom feeder. But a lawyer. He just called me. He said his clients are elderly, in frail health, and are profoundly distressed by their emotional daughter's actions. He said, in the interest of family peace, they are prepared to offer a settlement." I waited. "How much?" Cassandra paused, a beat of pure, calculated theater. $20,000. I almost laughed. It was a hollow, bitter sound. The exact amount. The $20,000 for Sloane's wedding deposit. The number that had detonated my life. They were still trying to barter. "It's an insult," Cassandra said. "It's not even a third of the fraudulent debt." "I know," I said. I looked at the 3 rules, still taped to my refrigerator. I looked at the picture of the note on my phone. I thought of Sloane, a broken refugee in a coffee shop. My voice was steel. "Tell him he has 1 hour," I said. "He must not have seen the email from the district attorney. You should forward it to him. Tell him they signed the full agreement. They pay the full $63,000, or he can watch his frail, elderly clients be arraigned tomorrow morning." The final offer, the one for $20,000, was not a negotiation. It was an insult. It was the last, reflexive gasp of a dying monarchy, an attempt to set the terms of their own surrender. My response had been simple: full restitution or full prosecution. Cassandra had hung up on their lawyer. The clock started, the final 72 hours, T-minus 72 hours. The phone call came from the escrow agent, not Cassandra, a woman with a brisk, no-nonsense voice named Ms. DeWitt. "Good morning, Miss Taylor. I am the court-appointed agent for the West Haven Lane property. I'm calling to inform you that we have a binding, all-cash offer. It is 20% over the asking price. The buyer is an investor looking for a fast, uncomplicated close. I am accepting it." I was stunned. "Already? It's a fire sale. Ms. Taylor," she said, not unkindly. "Price to move. The market is hungry. The important part for you is this: the funds are sufficient. The buyer has already signed the disclosure acknowledging the primary lien. The $63,000 restitution payment to your creditors will be the first disbursement, paid directly from the closing table. The machine is in motion." The house was gone, just like that. The first and largest piece of their identity, their security. Vaporized. T-minus 60 hours. My burner phone rang. The screen flashed. Lorraine. I stared at it. It was the old number, the one I knew as well as my own. The vibration was a frantic, desperate rattle on the smooth gray surface of the safe house table. It buzzed. It buzzed. It buzzed. The old Reagan would have answered. Her stomach in knots. The old Reagan would have been flooded with pity and terror. I looked at the phone. I felt a distant, cold sadness. I pressed the silence button. The screen went dark. The buzzing stopped. I had just failed the last guilt test. I had passed T-minus 48 hours. An email from Cassandra. It was a forward of her correspondence with the district attorney's office. Ms. Price, the email from the assistant DA, read, "Thank you for the preliminary files. Given the supplemental evidence, specifically the video from the apartment lobby Exhibit D, and the attempted fraud against the third party. Mr. T. Whitaker, my office is formally requesting the complete, uncompressed logs. We need the full IP analysis and the original device metadata from your investigator's report. We are expediting the review." Cassandra's note was at the top. "They're not just interested. Reagan, they're hungry. I've just authorized the secure transfer from the PI server to the state's server. This is out of our hands now. The DA has the scent." A new, cold dread settled in my stomach. This was no longer a game of chicken between me and my parents. A much larger, much more powerful machine was now at the table. T-minus 36 hours, an automated alert. This one from the financial monitoring service Cassandra's team had placed on all their known assets. Alert. A withdrawal request for $5,000 from the Gregory Whitaker IRA account has been attempted and blocked due to the active asset preservation order. I stared at the email. He wasn't trying to scrape together the restitution. He wasn't trying to pay the lawyers. He was trying to pull out cash. He was trying to build a new, hidden stash. He was, I realized with a sickening jolt, building a runway. He was planning to run. But the system had held. Cassandra had anticipated it. The cage was stronger than he was. T-minus 24 hours. A single text message from Sloan. The first since our disastrous, aborted meeting at the coffee shop. "I'm postponing the wedding." That was it. Not canceled. Not it's over. Postponing. She was still, even now, clinging to the fantasy. The denial was the only home she had left. T-minus 18 hours. A call from Cassandra. "It's done. The Vale family's legal team just served Sloan with a formal notice of dissolution. They invoked the reputational damage and material misrepresentation clauses in the prenup. Preston is, legally and officially, out. The engagement is terminated. They are, and I quote, reclaiming all non-liquid assets," which I assume means the ring. I immediately checked the burner phone. Silence. No texts from Sloan. No calls. No rage. No weeping. This silence was new. It was the silence of a person in genuine, profound shock, the silence of a person who has finally, truly, hit the bottom. It was a silence that scared me more than her anger ever had. T-minus 12 hours, the last, desperate, pathetic guilt bomb. A text from Lorraine. It wasn't words. It was a picture, a grainy, poorly lit photo of her left hand. Her skin looked thin and spotted in the harsh flash. On her finger was her old wedding ring. Not the gaudy anniversary diamond I'd paid for, but the original, thin, modest gold band from her wedding to my father. 35 years ago. The text underneath it read, "Having to pawn this, just so we can buy groceries. I hope this makes you happy." I looked at the picture. I felt nothing. A cold, flat, sterile, plain. I knew, because Cassandra's team was still monitoring their accounts, that their joint checking still held over $3,000. This wasn't for food. This was for the stage. This was her final third-act monologue, playing to an empty theater. I took a screenshot. I forwarded it to Cassandra. Subject Exhibit F, T-minus 8 hours, an email from Cassandra. The final document. Subject Final Draft. Settlement and Restitution Agreement. I opened it. It was beautiful. It was a fortress of legal language. The sale of the house. The immediate, locked-in payment of the full $63,000. And then, the new part. The part I had asked for. Article 4 10-year financial and contact restraining order. It was brutal in its specifics. It forbade them from contacting me, my place of employment, or any financial institution in my name. It forbade them from asking for money, requesting money, or implying the need for money. It forbade them from using any third party including, and specifying, Theodore and Sloan Whitaker to relay such a request. Any violation, it stated, would be considered a material breach, and a material breach would give me, Reagan Taylor, the sole and immediate right to reactivate the suspended criminal prosecution. It was a 10-year leash. It was freedom. Codified. T-minus 6 hours. My phone buzzed. A new voice note. From Theo. I pressed play. His voice was thick. Rough. "Ray. Hey. I just got off the phone with their lawyer. He tried to get me to talk to you. To beg. I told him to go to hell. I know it's tearing you apart, but you're doing the right thing. Nadia and we see it. It's the only way. You're doing the right thing. Don't back down now. We love you." I closed my eyes. I listened to it twice. It was oxygen. It was the first clean, untainted breath of air I'd had. It was the fuel I needed for the last mile. T-minus 4 hours. I idly opened the old family group chat on my personal phone, the one I had silenced days ago, the one that was usually a constant, toxic waterfall of Sloane's selfies, Lorraine's hints, and Gregory's demands. I scrolled. The last message was from 4 hours and 6 minutes ago, a link from Lorraine about a new heart medication. No one had replied. Not Sloane, not Gregory, not even Theo. The alliance was broken. The united front had shattered. It was the first time in the history of my phone that the family chat had been silent. T-minus 3 hours. An email from Ms. DeWitt, the escrow agent. Subject appraisal and final figures. Ms. Taylor, for your records. The formal appraisal on the West Haven Lane property has been completed. The value is confirmed. After the primary lien, the $63,000 restitution, the agent's fees, the closing costs, and all associated state and local penalties are paid. There will be a remainder. The check for the remaining equity will be issued to your parents. It is sufficient. They wouldn't be on the street. It was a small, accidental mercy. It was enough for them to find a small apartment. It was enough for them to be gone. T-minus 2 hours, the very last arrow, the final, desperate text from Lorraine. Are you absolutely 100% sure you want this? Are you sure you want to be the one to put your mother through this disgrace? To have my name, your family name, dragged through the mud? Is this what you want your legacy to be, T-minus 1 hour? I stood in the corporate apartment, looking out the window. The city was moving, oblivious. I read her text one last time. Disgrace, my name, your legacy. I thought about the forged signature. I thought about the voice print analysis. I thought about the faked heart attacks. I typed my last reply. You already disgraced the name. You just didn't like getting caught. I hit send. T-minus 30 minutes. I was dressed. I wore a simple, dark gray suit. It was not armor. It was a uniform. The uniform of an analyst, a professional, a person who was here to close a deal. My burner phone buzzed. The car was downstairs. I stood by the door. I took one long, slow, deep breath. The air filled my lungs. It felt cold. It felt clean. I let it out. T-minus 0. I walked into the conference room at Price Dallow. The black, mirrored table, the empty water glasses, Cassandra. At the head, the small, red, unblinking light of the audio recorder was already on. The heavy oak doors at the far end of the room opened. They walked in. They looked small. Gregory's suit was wrinkled. Lorraine's pearls looked dull. They did not look at me. They looked at the table, and there, in the center, directly in front of my father's chair, was the thick, multi-page agreement. Beside it, a single, heavy, black fountain pen. The cap was already off. The ink was wet. The nib was ready. The clock on the wall began to tick. They sat. The scrape of their chairs on the hardwood floor was the only sound, loud and jarring in the tomb-like silence. Gregory did not look at me. He did not look at Cassandra. He stared at the brass nameplate with his own name on it, as if it were an indictment. His hands, those hands that had gesticulated so broadly at the restaurant, lay on the table. The right one had a fine, pronounced tremor. He quickly hid it in his lap. Lorraine sat opposite him. She placed her handbag directly in front of her, clutching the handle with both hands. Her knuckles were white. The purse was not an accessory. It was a shield, a flotation device. It was the only thing holding her upright. The pearls at her throat seemed to have lost their luster, looking like dull, gray beads against her ashen skin. The small, red, recording light glowed. The clock on the wall ticked, a sound like a hammer hitting a tiny nail. Over and over, Cassandra let the silence stretch. She let them sit in it. She let them marinate in the cold air, in the smell of wood oil and paper, in the presence of the new, terrifying power dynamic. Then, she began. Her voice was not loud. It was not angry. It was the voice of a surgeon, reading a chart. "We are here to finalize the agreement presented to your council," she said, her hands flat on the table. "I will summarize the 4 key, non-negotiable articles one last time for the record." She did not look at a paper. She knew it by heart. Article 1. You will authorize the immediate binding sale of the property at West Haven Lane. The sale will be executed by the court-appointed realtor and must close within 21 days of this signing. Gregory flinched. The house, the first and largest pillar of his identity. Article 2. From the proceeds of that sale, you will authorize a primary, non-negotiable disbursement from escrow to satisfy the $63,000 of fraudulent debt incurred in Reagan Taylor's name. That money will be paid directly to the creditors. It will not touch your hands. It will not touch my client's hands. It is a straight, clean cauterization of the debt. Lorraine's eyes closed. Just for a second, a single, long blink. Article 3, Cassandra continued, her voice unchanged. You will consent to a binding, 10-year financial and civil restraining order. This order prohibits you, jointly and severally, from any and all contact with Ms. Taylor regarding her finances. It prohibits you from contacting her employer. It prohibits you from coming within 100 yards of her residence. It prohibits you from requesting, suggesting, or implying the need for any financial assistance, either directly or through a third party. This includes, but is not limited to, Theodore Whitaker and Sloane Whitaker. Gregory's head snapped up, his eyes, small and red. finally met Cassandra's. The mention of his other children, the severing of his other potential supply lines, had hit a nerve. Article 4, if, and only if, Articles 1, 2, and 3 are executed in full and on schedule, my client, Reagan Taylor, as the primary victim, will sign a formal recommendation to the District Attorney's Office for a suspended sentence and probation, citing your full and immediate cooperation in making restitution. Cassandra paused. If you fail to meet any deadline, if you breach any part of this agreement, Article 4 is voided, and my client will immediately and actively assist the state in its full prosecution. She finished. The clock ticked. 1, 2, 3. Gregory's trembling hand came out of his lap. He slammed it on the table. It was a pathetic, fleshy sound, all the power gone. No, he hissed, his voice a dry rasp. I won't sign. I won't be extorted. It was the last, dying twitch of the patriarch, the final, reflexive no from a man who had never heard the word. Cassandra did not argue. She did not debate. She did not raise her voice. She simply looked at him. You are mistaken, Mr. Whitaker, she said, her voice dropping a single, cold degree. You are not being extorted. You are being offered a plea deal. She reached into the folder in front of her. She pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was the email I had received that morning, the one from the assistant district attorney, now printed on heavy bond paper. She slid it across the black, mirrored surface of the table. It stopped, perfectly, in front of him. This, Cassandra said, arrived at 7:03 this morning. It is a formal expression of interest from the district attorney's office. They have received the video of you threatening Ms. Taylor's doorman. They have received the report of your attempt to commit loan fraud against your son. They are, as you can see in the second paragraph, deeply interested in a pattern of familial financial predation, and in the third paragraph, they have provided a preliminary timeline for their expected arraignment. Gregory's eyes scanned the page. He was not faking. He was reading. I watched his face, that mask of blustering, false confidence, finally, completely, crumble. It dissolved. The red of his rage drained, leaving behind the same waxy, terrified gray as his wife. He was no longer a CEO. He was no longer a patriarch. He was just an old, frightened man in a wrinkled suit, looking at a piece of paper that held the rest of his life. He looked up from the letter. He looked at me. It was the first time he had truly seen me in days. His eyes were pleading, desperate. He was looking for the ATM. He was looking for the daughter he could break. I did not look away. My face was a mask of neutral, analytical calm. I held his gaze. There was nothing there for him. No fear, no pity, no daughter, just a creditor. Lorraine saw it. She saw the new border, hard as steel, reflective as glass. She saw the end. A small sound, a choked sob, came from the doorway. My gaze shifted. There, in the hall, framed by the heavy oak door, was Sloane. She was a ghost. Her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen. She was clutching the doorframe, her knuckles white, as if she were holding herself up. She was staring at her father, at the broken man at the table. This was it, the full, unvarnished, unfiltered reality, the end of the Santorini dream, the end of the performance. A figure moved behind her. It was Theo. He was in his tweed jacket, his face grim. He came up behind Sloane and placed his hands gently on her shoulders. She leaned back into him, her body shaking. He won't, Dad, she whispered, her voice cracking. Sloane, Theo said. His voice was not loud, but it was clear, and it carried across the silent room. No, let them carry it themselves. He had made his choice. The last bridge was burned. That one sentence, that simple statement of his own freedom, was the final blow. It broke my father. Gregory Whitaker looked down at the agreement. He looked at the pen, his hand, shaking violently now, reached for it. He picked it up. He held it, suspended, over the signature line, a last, agonizing second of his old life warring with the terrible, stark reality of the new one. Then, he signed. The signature was not the bold, confident, looping script I had seen on 1,000 checks. It was small. It was spidery. It was weak. He slid the pen, and the document, toward his wife. Lorraine looked at it. She looked at me. Her eyes were empty. All the performance was gone. There was no rage, no martyrdom, no panic. There was just nothing, a void. She took the pen. Her hand was steady. She signed her name. The pen stroke was flat. It was thin. It was a final, quiet exhalation of breath. It was a life, rendered in a single, horizontal motion. Cassandra did not pause. She did not congratulate them. She reached across the table, took the signed signature page, and walked it to a high-speed scanner in the corner of the room. The room filled with the sound of a single, mechanical whoosh. I heard the click of her mouse, the tap-tap-tap of her keyboard. The signed agreement is now with Ms. DeWitt at the escrow office, she said, walking back to the table. And with the district attorney, we are just waiting for one. Her computer on the credenza chimed, a single, clear, digital bell. She looked at her monitor. She nodded once. Confirmation received, she said. The escrow agent has acknowledged the document. The funds routing is now legally locked. She looked at my parents. Two small, gray, defeated people. This is legally concluded, Cassandra said. This meeting is over. I did not say thank you. I did not say anything. It was not a favor. It was a transaction. I stood up. I felt the stiffness in my back, the coil of a decade of tension. Finally unspool. I pulled down the hem of my suit jacket. I straightened my spine. And, without a backward glance, I turned and walked out of the room, leaving them, the empty glasses, and the little red light behind me. I stepped out of the heavy oak doors of the conference room and into the main lobby. The air was different, circulating freely, no longer contaminated by the dense, pressurized silence of the room I had just left. Through the wall of glass, I could see the city moving, alive, indifferent. It was beautiful. The black Suburban was parked at the curb, exactly where it had been 2 nights ago. The same impassive driver stood by the open rear door. He nodded, his expression giving nothing away. He was a professional. This was just another job for him, another client to move from one point to another. Ms. Taylor, he said, his voice a low, polite monotone. The escrow agent, Ms. DeWitt, is waiting for you at her office. We are cleared to proceed with the final acceptance signatures. Acceptance. The word felt strange. I had been in a state of resistance for so long, a state of defense. Now, all that was left was to accept. To accept the debt was real, and to accept that it was, finally, being paid by someone else. I was halfway across the pristine marble floor when the oak doors behind me burst open. Reagan. It was Gregory's voice, but it was a sound I had never heard before. It was not the booming, confident roar of the CEO. It was a shredded, high-pitched, desperate shriek. It was the sound of a man who had lost everything. All at once, he lunged toward me, his face a grotesque mask of purple rage and absolute, naked terror. His suit was wrinkled, his tie askew. The tremors were visible in his entire body now, not just his hands. He was a collapsing building. "You can't," he screamed, stumbling, catching himself on the back of a lobby chair. You owe us. You owe us for your mother. You owe us for her youth, for the life she gave you, the sacrifices she made. You owe us." I stopped. I turned, slowly. I looked at him. The man who had, for my entire life, been a figure of absolute, unquestioned power. Now, he was just a desperate, ruined old man, standing in a lobby, screaming about invoices that were never real. I felt nothing, not pity, not rage. The line had been cut. The emotional IV was out of my arm. All I felt was the cold, clear, analytical finality of a closed ledger. I paid. I said. My voice was quiet. But it cut through his shrieking. It sliced through the marble and the glass. I already paid for her youth. I paid for it every day for the last 5 years of my life. The account is closed. Reagan. It was Lorraine. She had followed him out, her hand to her throat, her face a paper-white mask of disbelief. She was reaching for me, her fingers crooked, a reflexive, maternal gesture that was nothing but pure, manipulative instinct. It was the last, phantom attempt at a performance. But before she could take another step, an arm shot out and grabbed her wrist. It was Sloane. She was standing in the doorway, her face wrecked, her eyes red. She held onto her mother's arm, and her grip was not gentle. It was a vice. "Mother, no," Sloane whispered, and her voice was a flat, dead, hollowed-out thing. "Stop. There are no more stages. Just stop." Lorraine looked at her daughter. She looked at the hand on her arm. She saw, finally, what I had seen. The end of the audience. The end of the act. The lights were out. My burner phone vibrated in my suit pocket. I pulled it out. I did not bother to hide the screen from them. It was an automated alert from my bank. The one I had set up with Cassandra. Bank alert. A scheduled disbursement of $63,000, 0 cents, has been fully secured via escrow transfer. The associated fraudulent accounts are now pending closure. Your liability is 0. It was done. The digital confirmation, the objective truth, delivered in sterile, emotionless text. Cassandra was beside me. I hadn't even heard her approach. She had my coat. "It's over, Reagan," she said quietly. She held out her hand. I took it. Her grip was firm, dry, and professional. It was the handshake of a colleague, an ally. "From this moment on," she said, her eyes fixed on Gregory and Lorraine, who were frozen in their terrible tableau. "Any and all attempted contact, from them or any agent, goes through me. Do you understand?" "I understand," I said. "Good," she said, releasing my hand. "Go sign your papers. Live your life." I turned. I walked toward the glass doors. As I pushed through, I saw Theo. He was standing on the sidewalk, a respectful distance away from the car. His tweed jacket collar turned up against a wind I hadn't realized was blowing. He looked sad. Just sad. He was the only one in this whole mess who was grieving the idea of the family, not the loss of the money. He caught my eye. He gave me a small, broken smile. "Pasta tonight?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the traffic. "Nadia's making sauce. You can just come over, if you want." It was an offer of such profound, simple normalcy that it almost broke me. The life I could have had, the brother I could have known. I nodded, once, but I didn't promise. I didn't know who I was going to be. An hour from now. I couldn't make a new promise until the old ones were fully dead. He seemed to understand. He nodded back, then shoved his hands deep into his pockets. My coat pocket vibrated again. I pulled out my other phone, my work phone. It was an email from my managing director at Mariner Ridge. Subject Project Kestrel. Successful completion, Reagan. Just got off the line with the risk committee. Your analysis and wind-down strategy for the Kestrel portfolio was flawless. They are ecstatic. You took a $300 million toxic asset and neutralized it without a single write-down. As per our discussion, your temporary promotion to senior risk lead is effective immediately. Full compensation package to follow. Well done. We knew you could handle it. I stared at the screen. I had been working on that project for 6 months. A high-wire act of financial modeling and risk analysis. I had finished it. I realized, in the same 72 hours I had been dismantling my family. I had been managing 2 high-risk projects at the same time. I lowered the phone. A strange, sharp laugh, almost a sob, escaped my lips. I was good at this. I was good at finding the rot, analyzing the risk, and cutting the asset loose before it poisoned the whole portfolio. I had just, finally, applied my professional skills to my personal life. I looked back, one last time, through the glass. Lorraine had collapsed. She was actually sitting, on the hard, dirty stone steps of the high-rise office building. Her silk blouse, her pearls, her carefully curated country club facade, all of it, sinking onto the concrete. Sloane was beside her, just an empty shape, her arms wrapped around her mother. They were not crying. There were no dramatic tears. They were just silent, small, defeated. The city wind was whipping their hair across their faces, and they didn't even have the energy to brush it away. Gregory was still standing, frozen, by the lobby chair. He opened his mouth, as if to yell one last thing, but at that exact moment, a massive 18-wheel moving van, the one from the realtor's company, turned the corner. It hit its air brakes, and the loud, deafening of the horn, followed by the roar of the diesel engine, completely, totally, and utterly swallowed his final words. He was rendered silent, irrelevant, just another old man, lost in the noise of the city. The driver was still holding my door. "Ms. Taylor." I turned to the car. I caught my reflection in the deep, black, polished tint of the window. I stared at my own face. It was pale. It was tired. But my eyes were clear. I was not the broken ATM. I was not the ungrateful daughter. I was not the emergency fund. I was the account holder. I was the sole signatory. And I was, finally, solvent. I slid onto the cool leather. The driver closed the door. It shut with a heavy, final, definitive thunk. It was the sound of a bank vault being sealed. Not locking me in, locking them out. I was alone, in the quiet, sterile, armored space. The car pulled away from the curb. My phone vibrated, one last time. It was a text from Cassandra, a forwarded message from the Dacia office. File received. Signatures confirmed, as per the victim's recommendation. The status of the case is now officially suspended, pending adherence to the 10-year agreement. The leash was locked. The war was over. The headlights of the car swept across the canyon of buildings, illuminating the faces of the afternoon crowd, the buses, the taxis. The city was a roaring, chaotic, noisy, brilliant thing, but inside the car, and for the first time in my life, inside my own head, it was completely, beautifully, and perfectly quiet. The Suburban glided to a stop in front of another, smaller, glass and steel building, the escrow office. The driver turned to me, his face impassive as always, but his eyes, I thought, held a flicker of something. Respect. "Are you ready, Miss Taylor?" I looked at the glass doors. I thought about the first signature I'd made on that power of attorney, the one that started this whole war. I thought about the signature my father had just made, the one that ended it. And now, it was my turn to sign again. Not in fear, not in anger. I smiled. It was the real, light, easy smile, the one I had felt when I first cut the IV line. The smile of a binding being unwrapped. "Yes," I said. "I am." I opened my own door. I stepped out onto the sidewalk, and I walked in to sign the papers for a life that, for the first time, actually belonged to me. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so more people can hear it.